don't do anything wrong. It's all good. We're usually a Thursday morning enterprise anyway, Tim. So we're early because we're having staff day tomorrow.
Yeah, out on the water. Hooray! Much needed staff.
I didn't even look at the weather. I mean, whoever does,
it's
no reason for
Florida. Yeah, it's gonna be 90 degrees during the day and
Right.
79 at night.
Right. Well, since we started recording, we'll assume that we're starting in towards the green room. So, all right, good. Listen, welcome everybody to the green room. It's a Wednesday morning edition.
Good morning. So are we recording or are we live?
I don't know, either one though.
Okay.
It's all good, because people watching, that's the funny thing about the green room. So of course we do it live. Welcome to Wednesday morning, everybody. I may get confused because we always do it on Thursdays.
Good morning, everybody. Sorry for the change of date, but we do have an office day tomorrow, a much needed break for our staff. We rolled out a new electronic records system yesterday, so it's been a little chaotic. So they all will need a little downtime. So
the staff deserves it. Listen, I really want to give kudos to our staff.
Hands down to our staff. Yes.
Listen, what we know about medical cannabis, of course, is that it's all about the education, that we try to deliver every single day about the safe, effective use of cannabis. But also, I'll be honest with you, and everybody knows this, my staff, because of how nimble we are here, they free me up to do a lot of the political things that we do. And, I know we'll have a big announcement at the end of today's green room about next week's green room.
About next week. I was going to say about me. I'm
What's
not announcing yet.
You're not. No,
my announcement's coming, but not till November.
I would never do that to you, Ruta. But we do.
Soon.
Listen, we have great guests, and today we have a fantastic guest. But next week we're actually reaching into Washington, and I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. But listen.
Well, we're doing a green room today about Memorial Day.
Indeed.
And so we're trying to get some messages across about Mental Health Awareness Month.
It is Mental Health Awareness Month, and it's almost over.
It is.
And it's been so busy. Time flies for everybody. Listen, just starting out today's green room, Ruta and I were just talking before we went on. The green room, we have a lot of episodes. We go all through COVID and all through the election.
All through election season.
And
we have so many topics.
It is.
It's been
fantastic guests. And
today we have an awesome guest, a Purple Heart recipient.
Well, listen, it's Memorial Day, and I want to thank every veteran out there, of course, and especially our guest today. Ruta, why don't you go ahead and introduce?
Well, I'll have him introduce himself, but I just want to say a few words before we get to this, because it's something that actually is not a pet peeve, but it is a pet peeve of mine. We always say thank you to our veterans, but we don't walk the walk and we don't talk the talk. I think we have let down our veterans for generations. I think we always say, oh, thank you. But in reality, when it comes to their care, especially in the mental health field, we've let them down. And I think we need to take a step back as a country and say, stop saying just thank you, but actually put thank you into action. And so, Tim, I want to introduce you.
Well, you're right. It should be the highest priority.
It should be the highest
These
priority.
are the people that have fought for the rights that we all
have every day. For us to come on the
green
room every day and speak.
No, seriously, we take it way too much for granted, in this era. And I Tim, I'd love your opinion on this when we get into it. I'd almost like to see every kid at 18 have to go and serve their country for a couple years in some degree of service, be it military, be it Peace Corps, be it inner city teaching, something. You take their cell phones. Boy, I sound like an old guy. Tim, I turned 65 last week, and listen, I gotta find something else to talk about.
I know
what am I going to do next? I know I'm over it. I have now entered the elder generation, I guess, to a certain extent.
All right,
but hang on, I almost sound that way because the kids, they don't understand, Tim, in a lot of ways, the sacrifices that have been made by you and others. And I think we all need to mix them up and remind them and then make them serve. And then parents get 2 years of community college. And then by the time the kids are 22, maybe they can figure out what the hell they're going to do. Let's get to Tim. All right.
So, Tim, you were brought to us by our former producer here, Don. He recommended you as a great guest. And so I want you to introduce yourself and give us your background because it's truly amazing. So you have the floor for a few minutes. It's all yours.
All right. Well, I wonder how far back in the background you'd like me to go.
Where are you from, Tim? Because I always start with the sports teams, So if you tell me you're from Detroit, for example, or sometimes my guests are from Cleveland and I don't even know it. And then
Well,
we got to back up for 30 seconds or so, you know?
you wouldn't guess where I'm from if I gave you all day, most likely. So I'm actually an immigrant to the United States. I moved to the U.S. when I was 10 years old from England. So
What soccer club, what football team are you behind in England?
Arsenal, the Gunners, North
Okay.
Oh my
London.
God. Well, I'm a Chelsea fan, so okay.
Ah, good. We just beat you like a week ago.
No, you did. So just leave it at that. Okay.
Outstanding. Yes. So yes, I moved here when I was 10 years old to Venice, Florida. And I grew up in Venice. I went to Venice Area Middle School and then Venice High School. I graduated in 1999 from Venice High School. And then I went into the Fire Academy. I attended both Nokomis Fire Department's fire school and the Florida State Fire College in Ocala, Florida. And then I came back down and began working for Nokomis Fire Department around the year 2000, at the beginning of 2001. And as we know, on September 11th of 2001, our country was attacked. And being a firefighter at that time, being an immigrant to the United States, knowing that those 343 firefighters died running into the Twin Towers, knowing that, you know, those 3,000 Americans died, I felt it as a young man, physically fit and able. I felt that it was my duty to you know, fight for this country. I had been given my citizenship in January of 2021, 10 years after I moved here. So I just become a citizen. My favorite part about being a firefighter was the adrenaline rush that you get from it. I've always been very pushed towards those types of things. I've surfed my whole life. I really enjoy like snowboarding and mountain climbing and skydiving and, you know, those kind of edge of your seat type things. And then in 2003, as you know, we went to war with Iraq and Afghanistan. And in 2005, after seeing the news, listening to the news stories, seeing the Army commercials, and you know, just having my own thoughts about the entire situation, I decided to speak to my chief, and I took a leave of absence, and I went down to my local recruiter's office, and I joined the U.S. Army Infantry. It didn't take them very long to decide that I'd be a good fit. So within a couple of weeks, I was on my way to Fort Benning, Georgia, and in infantry basic training.
Sure. Wow.
Was,
did you use your EMT and otherwise training? Were you
actually I joined the infantry. So my job was essentially the front line, going into houses, you know, pulling cordon and searches, traffic control points, going after high value targets, specifically moving to contact, those type of jobs. And prior to going in, I had met a wonderful lady, and we had got married right before I deployed. And then my deployment, I left on October 1st of 2006. I left to go to Iraq. And that was still pretty close to the beginning of the war. It was far enough into the war where our enemy was learning how to fight us quite well. So they were using a lot of IEDs at this point in time.
This is the second time in 3 weeks we've heard moving towards contact, because you remember Sean Worsley also used that exact term. And that to me just connotes PTSD, Tim. You know, I mean, you're moving towards contact. You know, you guys were there literally to try to disarm these explosive devices, but you didn't even know which ones were active and what was real and what was not. I can only imagine the scenario there, you know?
Right. Yeah, it was difficult. We were going through IEDs every week. you know, sometimes it would just blow up the front of the truck and fill the truck up with smoke and dust, and you'd have some really terrible ringing in the ears. But once we realized everyone was okay, strangely enough, you would hear this hooping and hollering, and it was almost exciting, if that makes sense. But
Yeah,
it was
no,
just
because you guys made it. No,
Yeah.
right.
How
Right.
long did you
crazy,
deploy
actually.
for, Tim? How long were you over there?
Our deployment was supposed to be 1 year, 12 months, but then it got stop lost and extended to 15 months. But so about halfway through my deployment, and this is one of the main things I think that started to create my PTSD, was I had had a particularly rough day in combat, and I had gone back to my fob, the place that we lived at the time, and I waited for about an hour and a half to get on a computer or a phone, and I was trying to reach my wife just to, you know, have a nice conversation, talk to her, find out, or, you know, let her know how tough of a day I had had, and just get some condolences, kind of thing. Well, I opened up an email that said, Tim, I'm sorry, but, you know, I've drained your bank account. I'm pregnant by my boyfriend, who I've actually been with since before you left to go to Iraq.
Oh,
It was the worst Dear John letter you could possibly get. She essentially explained to me that her entire goal was to try and find an infantryman, get him to marry her, have him sign over his life insurance, hope he dies in combat, and she would get the
holy
$500,000
cow.
life insurance and live out the rest of her life with her boyfriend that she had had prior to even meeting me.
Well, here's
So
a moment where you wish karma is going to be a bitch to her. Oh, I'm sorry, but that's
you'd
nasty.
like to
Okay,
think,
sorry.
yeah.
That's my side note.
Well, I
Wow.
will say that when I joined the Army, I again, I was a firefighter. I was a giver, a carer, and I believe I still am. But there was a period of time in combat after that moment where I realized that I had joined the Army and gone over there because I wanted to help people, and I wanted to free an oppression, people that were being oppressed by a dictator. I wanted to, you know, bring safety to the American people. But once I had been there for 3 or 4 months, saw the damage that was happening to American troops, saw how much they didn't want us there, despite, you know, our belief that we were there for a good cause.
Yeah, there was.
And then the tragedy with my wife. I slipped down a rabbit hole where essentially, you know, I was in a place where I was armed all the time. I had immunity for the most part. You could Our job was to, you know, go inside houses and look for weapons and interrogate military age males and all these type of things. And it was a quick fall from being there to help people to being there to hurt people. And
You hear
it's
that a lot.
it's hard to actually, you know, come out and say that, especially in a public forum like this,
But
because
it has to be heard because I think especially with the Iraqi war, you hear it more and more where the soldiers went out with a specific purpose, like you, and then they came home deflated because the purpose wasn't what they thought it was initially. And yeah, and mentally to deal with that's really tough. And you hear I have a military company that department I work for the Department of Defense, and I hire a lot of ex-military guys to go overseas on contract work, and most of them are Iraqi veterans, and they all come back saying the same exact thing, Yeah, it's very tough mentally then to process and go out every day.
right, right.
Yeah.
And then when, you know, then when we come home, um, despite the physical injuries that may have occurred, or even the mental ones, we have this moral injury to ourselves that has been caused, where, you know, we broke our own moral compasses, and you know, we went against what we believed in as Americans, as you know, maybe Christians or whatever you may affiliate yourself with. We went against our own moral compasses sometimes, and that is something in itself that produces PTSD. You know, it doesn't have to be I saw
Absolutely.
someone dying, or you know, there were blood and guts everywhere or something like that. Just going against your moral compass in a situation like that, for a long period of time, uh, is devastating to one's psyche, honestly, and it's hard to come back from, and a lot of men and women can't come back from it, you know.
No, and
So
and I think people don't realize it. I think that's one of the things that I think it's great that you're on today to talk about that, because I think people, when they assume military PTSD, they think, yeah, maybe because of the combat, because of blood and guts, but they don't realize about the moral dilemma. And I think that has to be really discussed more openly, because it does affect hundreds and hundreds of people.
Listen, this has been a very unique green room. You know why, Tim? I've been speechless for the last 3 minutes. Speechless.
notice
Everybody
that.
will tell you that never happens. Okay. And I'm so profoundly sorry, okay, for the lack of support that you had from the home front, specifically, you know, your wife. You know, people talk to me about impairment. And impairment to me can happen from a lot of things: substance abuse, alcohol abuse, but it can also come from your wife telling you, and I'm talking ER doctor and you're talking soldier. What if you're an ER doctor and you're going in for your 7 o'clock shift, and your wife at 6:30 in the morning tells you, you know what? I've been sleeping with your partner and this and that and whatever. You're going to be ready to go at 7 in the morning to take care of
Right.
people the
Mentally,
same.
and
So my
how do you
point is,
function?
impairment comes from any number of sources,
Right.
as does PTSD. And like I said, you know, silence to me means that I was profoundly struck by the things that you said and how they've come about. And you're right, the going against the moral compass. This is what I hear from my Vietnam vets as well, right? They knew pretty well into the mission that it wasn't exactly what they thought they were doing. And then when they came back, of course, the population was not ready to accept them. I think that may be the only difference these days. And I'd be interested in your perspective more than mine. I think at least the population, when you come back now as a soldier, at least accepts the fact that you were there with the appropriate purpose, and may not place the blame on the individual soldier for
Right.
making the decisions that they made. Whereas in Vietnam, there was that era, there was a little bit of a difference. I think it's the one thing that we've learned as a population, so to speak, is that we still must respect our soldiers for the job they were doing.
I completely agree. I will say that one thing that was devastating to me when I came home, I had a very good reception from the American citizens, American people, my family, those type of things. But when we found out, especially for the soldiers that joined in 2003 up until about 2008, when we found out that there were no weapons of mass destruction and that there were no Afghanis or Iraqis in the 9/11 attacks, that became quite a conundrum in terms of being able to trust your government, believe that the things that you did were for good, you know, when our entire reason for joining and going were, you know, our Saddam had weapons of mass destruction, and that, you know, we were going to go get the people that did 9/11. And it turns out that none of that was true in terms of Iraq and Afghanistan. And that again was a huge blow to the psyche of a soldier that you know, did the things that he did in hopes that it was for the protection of American freedoms and things like that, when really it was just, there's a lot of oil in Iraq, there's a lot of opiate in Afghanistan.
So one thing we've learned about the green room, these go too fast. What's going on now, Tim? How did you recover?
Well, I want to just hear one thing
Go
before
ahead.
that, because you're a Purple Heart recipient, so I want to hear about that.
Sure. Yep.
Right. Okay. Well, so I'd said we got stop loss the 15th. We got extended 3 months out. Well, on September 17th, 13 days prior to my 1-year anniversary, my Bradley that I was in, which is slightly like a tank, but it's infantry troop carrier. My Bradley struck a massive IED, and there was only me and one other person in the back. His name was Emmanuel Sewell. It was a large IED. I was medevaced from that site to Longstuhl, Germany, where I had been knocked unconscious. I broke my back. I had sustained a massive traumatic brain injury and got medevaced out to Germany. I spent several months in Germany before I got medevac from there back to Fort Hood, where I started my recovery. And my recovery existed of copious amounts of benzodiazepines and opiates. And the transition into being medically retired out of the Army. So they took away my identity. I knew I could never be a firefighter again. I knew I could never be a soldier again. I now was being taken away from my family, and I was being given all of these meds that essentially took away all of those crappy feelings and just put me in this euphoric la la land where I didn't know what was happening, couldn't have relationships, couldn't hold a job, couldn't do anything, and I spiraled down very quickly. In 2009, I was retired out of the military, and between me coming home in 07 and 2013, I got 5 DUIs, all for driving under the influence of the narcotics I was being prescribed by the Department of Defense or the Department of Veterans Affairs. I'm now a felon. I have a lifetime ban on my driver's license.
What?
Yes, I can apply to get it back in August of 2027. So
We have Representative Greg Stubbe on next week. I'm gonna play, I hope we can make this clip and play it for him, because I think that's something that the United States Congress has, legislatures have to address for our military guys who get put into this situation where they're on heavily prescribed narcotics, and the next thing you know, you have this against you on a driver's license. This is insanity.
right. It's
Wow.
extremely difficult,
Yeah.
holding the title of felon, holding the title of disabled veteran with PTSD, and having a lifetime ban on my driver's license makes it very hard to do anything in life.
Anything, function in society.
I'm a single adult with no kids that lives alone, to go to the gas station, I have to spend $15 on an Uber type thing, so it's difficult, but I'd rather get into the things that aren't so difficult, things that are going well. And
Good idea.
No, and we
but
almost
this is
passed over
important,
the significant injury that you had and that whole recovery part. But I know you're doing great things now.
Right. So
keeping you on the
I
right
want to
side.
hear about this, because I hear you are doing amazing things.
Right. So in 2013, I was living in Sanford, Florida, and it was the lowest point of my life, I would say. I was addicted to drugs, more at that point than just the prescribed medication I was on, because I would run out of my medication early. I was self-medicating for all of the PTSD and physical injuries that I had. I was using alcohol on top of the medication. Things were going really bad, and I had
to be alive, man.
Thank you. I had a battle buddy that was in Fort Hood with me, who lived up north, and he had drove down to go on spring break to come to Orlando, and he wanted to stop by and see me in Sanford. We came and saw my house and saw the state that I was in, the state that I was living in, the area that I was in, and just my lifestyle, and was like, no, this is unacceptable. And within a couple weeks, he showed up at my door with a Ryder truck, packed all of my stuff up, and I moved up north to a place called Platteville, Wisconsin, where I eventually got into the treatment center at the VA. I did a 4-week substance abuse treatment and then a 6-week PTSD treatment with prolonged exposure. Came out, agreed with the VA that I would never be prescribed benzos or opiates ever again. And it didn't matter that, I may have needed them for the symptoms. I would rather have had PTSD symptoms than the lifestyle I was living with the opiates and benzodiazepines and the other narcotics. So I joined the University of Wisconsin. I was accepted to the University of Wisconsin, and I started going to school. I got a bachelor's degree in psychology with an emphasis in substance abuse counseling and human services. I was the president of the Veterans Club and the Psychology Club at the university, and I started a seminar where we invited faculty and staff from all 22 of the sister schools of the UW system to our university, and We had a public speaker. I was one of the public speakers, and some other veterans, where we talked about how veterans that are coming home from Iraq and Afghanistan with PTSD that are now using the GI Bill, going to school in the classroom with traditional 18 to 22-year-old students, and the difficulties that we face in that environment. And it went really well. And it was at that point that I discovered, my story gets people's attention. And I want to be able to help guys that, are coming home, that are struggling. Unfortunately, Emmanuel Sewell, the only person that was in the back of my Bradley, has now passed away. So that's difficult, as one of the only people that I had really that understood that, at least that moment,
of your
in
life,
time, right? So that's difficult right there in itself. We've had
Did
a
he
couple
pass away
guys
from injuries that were sustained from that, or was it just?
No, he actually died. He died of cancer. So there isn't any evidence as to what may have caused this cancer, but I don't know if I don't know how much you guys know about burn pit exposure, but it's essentially the Operation Iraqi Freedom's Agent Orange from
Listen, I take it all the way back to Agent Orange and napalm and my Vietnam veteran, population guys, Tim. So you have a connection with cannabis at this point. I know you're in the substance abuse world and everything. So it's really important that we let veterans know that cannabis can be a substance to be used appropriately. Right. And of course, every substance can be abused. No one wants anything to be abused, but cannabis, thank God, doesn't have catastrophic consequences with abuse. That's why I said that you were lucky to have survived. And I know it took a hell of a lot of work to survive. So I'm not saying it's luck, but thank God you didn't run into a carfentanil pill, okay, or something like that. There's one dose pills that kill veterans every day now out there. And I'm sure you've lost, friends, and people that you've known. So we need to make sure that we end that stigma. That's why we are so proud to have Representative Stubbe coming on next week, because this needs to be taken care of at the federal level, and especially with our veterans. So what are you doing specific with cannabis at this point, Tim? Anything specific?
This is what helped me. The stigma against cannabis is unbelievable. And I, for the most part, kept my cannabis use under wraps, especially while
we all did.
Right. Well, especially while I was going to university. I was going to school for substance abuse counseling. It was a difficult task. College isn't the easiest thing in the world. I have a brain injury and PTSD and things. The only thing that was able to get me through that was my cannabis use. And that was, I smoked in the morning before I went to school. If I needed to, I would come back to my house and smoke in the afternoon, and then in the evenings before I went to bed. This enabled me to be able to get my symptoms under control enough to be able to sit in class, be able to pay attention, be able to retain the information. I wasn't afraid to speak out during class. I wasn't afraid to get up in front of the class and speak in front of people. All of these things I was not able to do without the cannabis use or the unfortunately the narcotics. But those were and are now they aren't in the books for treatment for me. It's just something that could never happen again. So I've had to find ways to reduce my symptoms and still be able to be part of civilized culture and the workforce and whatever else I need to do, relationship building and all of the above. So
it's unique. You're going to train to be a substance abuse counselor, and yet had to keep your cannabis use appropriately under wraps. And that's why, as Ruta knows, we fight very hard for licensure and job protections and veterans access. let's face it, as we go forward, Tim, and that's why we're so honored to have you with us today, because you're one of those people that are going to help us pull on the rope together, right, as we go forward to make sure that we focus on these critical issues, because legalization and holding your medical card mean nothing if you don't have job protections, right?
Most
If you don't
definitely.
have the ability, and you know how it is in the military, just like it is in medicine, like it is in athletics. Sometimes you can't even admit weakness. You can't even admit anxiety or depression. I'm sure that was a massive thing that you saw throughout your active service. So, you know, we need to have the freedom to be able to admit the substances that we utilize appropriately. You know, we're putting together a whole talk for a couple weeks on cannabis use disorder. I would defy anybody to say that when you were using cannabis before a class, maybe during the day and in the evening, it helped you focus. And that can't be categorized as cannabis use disorder, even though you knew that you could be thrown out of your program, I suspect, if somebody knew that you were a cannabis user. So
Right.
there's so many cognitive areas of dissonance that we need to take care of as we go forward.
So Tim, we have to wrap up because we're running into the 9 o'clock hour. Can you just give us a quick 30 seconds on where you are right now, what you're doing, what your passion is, and we'll have to wrap it up.
No, but we should have him on again. He's
we'll
one
have
of
you
those,
on again.
we do.
This wasn't enough time. But
no, half hours go so
it goes
fast,
too
because
quickly.
I hate to ever interrupt on somebody's personal story,
That's
because they're
awesome.
so profound.
We don't even need to speak.
I know, like I
So
said,
Tim,
silence for
the
me.
show is yours for 30 seconds. Give us a quick wrap on.
Right on. I am I facilitate groups in a company called Vet to Vet, where you know, we're not held by any federal regulations. So you know, we don't necessarily endorse cannabis use, but we do not we don't judge or criticize anyone for it. If it works for you, it works for you. Use it, right? And use it correctly. Use the way, talk to your doctor, use the correct amounts, find the strain that works for you, have support, you know, all of these types of things. We break it down, you know, and we don't make it to where like it's a hush hush. No, you can't talk about that, because no one's ever going to get better if they're not able to talk about what's really going on. And that's an issue with the VA. I can't work for the VA if I want to use cannabis. That is a federal institution. I would love to work for the VA. It's where I would get all of the best veterans that need the most help, but that's not a direction I'm able to go at the moment. Luckily, the other agencies I work for at the moment don't have an issue with my cannabis use. So again, though, you know, I think I break the stigma on a lot of it. You know, I'm an intelligent, well-spoken person that is compassionate, caring, and you know, I used cannabis this morning before I got on this call. Would you have thought that I was, you know, an illiterate, unmotivated, whatever the stigma is behind, you know, medical cannabis is, it's a shame. So
is the organization, is it local or is it national?
It's national, but it's broken into local areas. So because we're not affiliated.
What we'll do, Tim, is we'll have you get in touch with Adam, our new producer, and if there's a website or something, we'll be glad to post it, you know, and give it some press. And I know we have listeners that are actual national listeners today. We are at a time we have to go back and see patients. Tim, thank you for your service. I know we say it, but I genuinely mean it. And God bless you for what you're doing now, and that you got through it. You're a role model to so many, I think, and your story is amazing, and it needs to be heard. It's like every other soldier, and so many soldiers that come back. And again, thank you, and it's kudos to you for pulling out of what you pulled out of, and putting yourself where you are today. It's amazing. And even though you're an Arsenal fan, I'll let it go. But you know,
listen, and surely anything that we can do as a clinic to assist in what you have going on, you know, individually or surely organizationally, we'd be thrilled to participate and help in your efforts for sure.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for what you guys are doing. It's so important, and I'm so incredibly grateful for it.
Thank you. Thank you all for listening today. We'll be back actually next Friday with a special edition with Representative Stubbe, where we're going to talk about issues that like Tim has had to overcome and is still battling, like with his driver's license. And we're going to address it with Representative Stubbe. So Tim, please tune in on next Friday because we're going to speak about you directly to him. So
stay safe and healthy, everybody, and have a great
week.
Memorial Day.
Take care.
Thank you.
Yep, be well, everybody.